Our Region's Business is sponsored by PNC for the achiever in you. Our Region's Business. Innovation, transformation, momentum, improving our communities and driving technologies that will shape our region for generations. The collaboration that brings vitality, prosperity, and life to living. Stay with us for the coming half hour as we examine in depth our region's business. Now, here's your host, Bill Flanagan.
Good morning, I'm Bill Flanagan. Welcome to Our Region's Business. This is the first broadcast of a first-of-its-kind program focused on two big issues, jobs and money, and how our region can create more of both. Yes, and here we are 10 years later on Our Region's Business. This is, after all, the 500th edition here with Stuart Hoffman, Chief Economist of PNC Financial Group. Good to have you.
Good to be here, and congratulations. 500 and going strong.
And going strong, doing the best I can. I know it's a little wild to take the walk back in time out of the gate, but I got to share with you, I think you were on show number 4. Oh. And so we'll take a look at the videotape.
Oh, no.
Stuart Hoffman joins us this morning. He's Chief Economist for PNC Financial Group, and welcome. Good to see you again.
Glad to be back, Bill.
All right, we'll start with the macro and work our way down to our region as far as what's going on in the economy. And I know what's on everybody's mind are gasoline prices, $2 a gallon.
$2 a gallon. There's no question the economy's been doing well. But there is a threat, and higher oil prices is probably the center of that threat. Iraq is another problem. I sort of talk about perhaps the economy having 3 black eyes, but the eyes are inflation, interest rates, and Iraq.
So there you go, inflation, Iraq, and interest rates. That's what we were worried about back in 2004. We've come a little bit of a long way, but some of the same issues always seem to be out there, right?
Iraq, maybe not as much anymore. Oil prices are a lot better behaved. But yes, there's always something. I'm still mesmerized by what I looked like at. Was that only 10 years ago?
That was, more like 11, but it was 500 shows ago.
Oh,
so that's the important
We haven't
metric.
aged a bit, Bill.
I wish. And you're timeless. I wish I could say the same of myself. But it is kind of a good time to reflect, really, and specifically for our region.
Yes.
How much better things have gotten, really, over the last 10 years.
Sometimes I refer to it as a metamorphosis, that, this greater Pittsburgh region 10 years ago, let alone a little over 30 years ago when I came back to Pittsburgh in the early 80s, and where we are now, it's sort of like we used to be an ugly moth, and we've come out of our cocoon, and we're sort of a pretty butterfly floating around these days economically. Even compared to 2004, we came, of course, through the terrible national recession, relatively well off. We're one of the few metro areas that over a year ago actually surpassed the number of people working in our region than we had back in 2007. We've continued to build on that. It used to be back in the days even before 10 years ago when the U.S. had a little recession, southwestern Pennsylvania had a big recession, and it took us about a year to even find out the national economy was recovering. This time we had a less severe recession, not only in the early 2000s, right before that show, 2000, 2001, but certainly in 07, 08, and 09. And here we are growing at a much faster pace. We have a different demographic. We have younger people, 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds coming into the community. It really has been quite a run for us in the past 10 years, and we're still going too.
And the other thing, it's fascinating, you go back just 10 years, 500 shows, that was around the time they hit gas in the Marcellus Shale. Wasn't even on the radar screen when we taped that segment.
And that's true around the nation. Of course, it's here in Pittsburgh or southwestern Pennsylvania, but the nation has had an energy revolution relative to 10 years ago, or let alone relative to 40 years ago. We're also just past the anniversary of the oil embargo. 73, 74. Before that, Americans never knew what the acronym OPEC stood for. But
gasoline soared to like $1 a gallon, as I recall.
Maybe it was 50 cents.
Okay, really?
So, really, we're producing more oil now in the country than we have in 40 years. And, of course, natural gas is a large part of that. So we're a great beneficiary here in southwestern Pennsylvania. But I want to make it clear that this region is not just about energy and gas. That's very important, but it's about technology. It's about our affordable cost of living. It's about healthcare. It's about financial services. It's a broad-based economic recovery and sort of in platform. And energy is certainly very, very important and remains so. But we're a lot more than just a Marcellus shale hub.
Wow, and you mentioned a little bit about the population dynamics. The region does seem to be getting younger, finally. Yeah, population growing, finally?
Yes, they are, and in the right, quote, age cohorts, 30s and 40s. Everyone's gotten older in that time as we were born. And so, of course, the nation's gotten a little older, but the southwestern Pennsylvania is benefiting over the last 10 years at least, but particularly over the last 4 or 5, of a different type of migration, in-migration rather than out-migration. And a lot of that is related to younger people in the technology field, in the medical field, and our universities, of course, very, very important in attracting them there, either as students or as professors or as entrepreneurs. So yes, that's a big important part of the story.
So when you look ahead over the next 500 shows or the next 10 years or so, I mean, what's your take on where we're headed as a region?
As we sit here today in southwestern Pennsylvania, we have a fairly good balance, better than we did 10 years ago. So we've made that transition over the last 10 years, and of course nothing like 20 and 30 years ago. So yes, as a starting point here in 2014 to think about the next 10 years, if we could do as well as we did the last 10 years, given where we started, we can do as well or better in the next 10 years in the right type of national economic environment with a lot of good leadership, private and public, here in southwestern Pennsylvania, leading that charge.
All right, Stuart Hoffman from PNC, always great to see you. I'm sure we'll have you back more than once over the next 500 shows.
It's guaranteed.
All right, thanks a lot, Stuart. Next up, our region is doing better than it was a decade ago and certainly better than 5 years ago, but just how do we stack up against the competition? The answer may help you convince young people to stay here and come here. Stay with us.